We're returning back to our series on Acts and going through the book of Acts. This is a story that I think gives a really good example of a lot of what the early church was dealing with. Now, at this point in the church's history, they weren't seen as being really separate from Judaism. So, this is part of the reason why in this passage, the people that dragged Paul and Silas in front of the rulers to be tried uh, they basically were using a lot of kind of racist attitudes towards Jews as their justification for having them beaten and flogged and imprisoned. But the reality is because of their faith, is because of what Paul does specifically to the individual that they were taking advantage of to make money. It was because of all of this that led to it. And it's really because of his faith ultimately as well. So this is an example of that persecution the early church was facing so often. It experienced to such an extreme degree. Now, Paul and Silas, they do get out of this situation. Spoilers, and in the rather impressive sort of way. So it wasn't a permanent situation, but it was something that members of the early church had to face so often, especially back then. And it did color their attitudes and their teachings and how they went about their daily life. They had to kind of reconcile with the fact that preaching the gospel for them could mean that they were going to die. And so you notice with all of them, really, that all of them kind of find this sort of peace in knowing that that might happen. And find kind of they come to peace with that whole possibility, which I think is very interesting. Now, for us here in the modern days, we thankfully the United States don't have to worry about this type of treatment or anything like that. The worst that we ever will experience is maybe being made fun of for what you believe in. But being dragged off and imprisoned for doing God's work or for preaching the gospel is something that just doesn't happen in America. It does happen elsewhere in the world, but it doesn't happen here in America. And I think for us, there's two things then that we can really take away from the story. The first is just a thankfulness that we don't have to put up with this, type of issues and everything. But the second thing is it should motivate us to pray for individuals who are in these types of situations and have to deal with this type of stuff. We should be praying for our persecuted Christian brothers and sisters around the world, and keeping them in mind, when we are going to God in prayer, because that they are facing is so much worse than we ourselves are facing here in America on a daily basis. Amen. And now I'd like to invite you all to join me for our last song today.